Is ESPN Plus worth your money? You're about to find out. Fred Richani of TSC. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm going to give you our thoughts on ESPN Plus, the official subscription service of ESPN. A monthly subscription is $11.99, $12 a month, and an annual subscription is $119.99. What do you exactly get with ESPN Plus? Well, if you are a fan of the three major sports in the United States, which are American football, basketball, Major League Baseball, I'm afraid I've got some bad news, because MLB, its future with ESPN is shaky at the time that we are doing this recording. There may not be MLB on ESPN come later this year. NBA doesn't really have a whole lot of ESPN Plus content as far as actual games go. And with the NFL, outside of the rare simulcasted stream of Monday Night Football and all that jazz, you're relegated to different specials and shows such as NFL Primetime. Nothing wrong with those shows, by the way. But I'm just saying, if you're a fan of those three major sports, this app is probably not for you. Now, if you're a fan of MMA, in particular UFC, you got quite a bit of content to choose from here. Now, some MMA fans will say, well, hey, hang on a second. Doesn't UFC have its own app? Yes, it does. UFC actually does have its own app called Fight Pass. However, in the United States, you can't watch any pay-per-views on there. You cannot stream certain prelims. And in terms of fight nights that are only available on ESPN Plus, well, they're only available on ESPN Plus. So keep that in mind, although it does include an extensive archive. Now, as far as what ESPN Plus has itself, well, a lot of MMA content, in particular UFC. So if you're a UFC fan, I think you'll want to pay attention here. If you're not a UFC fan, what the heck else do you get here? And good question. You get some soccer, you get LaLiga, Bundesliga, you get some NHL games, top-ranked boxing, which also similar to the MLB, kind of has a murky future right now. Formula One. You also get the Emirates Cup, Supercopa, the Barclays Women's Super League, Copa del Rey. In terms of combat sports, in addition to UFC and Top Rank, which is on the outs, you also got PFL, Professional Fighters League, which does include some UFC alumni. You get college sports as well in various conferences in football, basketball, tennis, golf, and more. And that more includes some select content from the NBA G League and National Lacrosse. You also get original series as well, including replays of the Pat McAfee Show, ESPN FC, Sue's Places, PK Subban's Places, Vince Carter's Places, a lot of places. Football America's Full Court Press, In the Arena with Serena Williams, NFL Primetime, UFC Embedded, Turning Point, and on top of that, you also get exclusive pre- and post shows from UFC, and access to all the excellent 30 for 30 documentaries that include Celtics and Lakers, I Hate Christian Laettner, The Fab Five, The Last Dance, which is maybe the greatest sports documentary ever made, Unrivaled, Requiem for the Big East, Dickie V, The Buddy Way, Four Falls of Buffalo, OJ Made in America, which is also incredible, The Minister of Defense, Rodman, Dion's Double Play. You can also catch what's currently playing right here on the featured section. Number of women's college basketball games right here. Women's lacrosse, also live women's hockey. Even some cricket. You have your top picks over here. You have upcoming events, as you can see, some men's college basketball, some NHL action, some PGA Tour. Me personally, I'm more of a big UFC fan, NFL, basketball, baseball. And here's the thing, if you're a fan of NFL and you're a fan of live NFL content as in the games themselves, probably not the service for you. If you're a fan of the NBA and live NBA content as in the actual games, probably not the service for you. Baseball, same thing, because baseball is on the outs right now with ESPN Plus and ESPN in general, and we shall see what happens down the road. But if you're an MMA fan in particular and a combat sports fan, I think you might like what you see. So, as far as what you see, let's go to the different leagues and check it out right here, and you'll see everything you currently get. So there's live and upcoming, which of course includes press conferences, countdown shows, pre-shows, as well as prelims. You have various shows that are on demand right here, and you have past event replays as well. So you select past event replays. They only go up to a certain point, so UC 312 at the time that I'm recording this just recently happened. That's currently available. You can click on that and it'll allow you to watch that card. I'm not sure why you'd want to watch Sean Strickland and DDP yet again, but hey, if you want to watch it, you can, which is pretty cool. You also have other past UFC events right here that you can scroll through. So this one, I believe, goes all the way up to UFC 289, which is not the full archive. It is a recent archive. But yeah, I would imagine if you're signing up for UFC, you'd like to have a few more pay-per-views to go back to. Granted, it's most of the shows from the last couple of years, which is still pretty cool. You could also browse around the different leagues right here, and it essentially gives you an option to select what you want to select. So if you want to go to general MMA, you do have UFC, you do have PFL. Let's click on PFL. If you're somebody that wants to explore some more MMA, you have various PFL highlights right here, as well as past shows. The nice thing with PFL is that, again, it does include some UFC alumni, including, of course, Francis Ngannou, Chris Cyborg, and now current UFC fighter and contender Kayla Harrison. As for what else you get with UFC, well, you do get access to pay-per-views. Now you might be thinking, wait, that means I get them for free, right? Not so fast. So you have to have an ESPN Plus subscription to order a show. And notice when you click Get Access, well, it asks you to buy the pay-per-view. Notice, must have an ESPN Plus subscription. That means if you're buying a UFC pay-per-view for $80, you'll have to pay an $11 on top of that with your ESPN Plus subscription. Now you might be thinking, how's that a good deal? I never said it was. I'm just saying it is what it is. You do have full fights right here, which are really nice. You have Dana White's Contender Series, which is an exclusive series on ESPN Plus. The nice thing with Dana White's Contender Series is it is literally a series of future stars, kind of like what the Ultimate Fighter was back in the day, but you actually do have some guys that were elevated from the Contender Series to become pretty damn good fighters, like Sean O'Malley. So it's usually a pretty entertaining watch. You have UFC highlights. You have UFC The Beginning. So you do have some select shows right here from the past. Again, it's not an exhaustive archive like UFC Fight Pass, which is just dedicated to pretty much all of UFC's library and whatever they own and have the rights to. You have full episodes of The Ultimate Fighter. Again, Dana White's Contender Series. Rowdy's Places. I don't know how many. They have Peyton's Places, Rowdy's Places, Peter's Places. Like, how many places are you going to have, man? UFC Embedded, UFC Journey, UFC Main Event, which features highlights of different main events. UFC Reloaded, which is full event replays. Top 10s, UFC Unleashed, which features different fights. Fight Flashback as well. So quite a bit of archive content right there. You have the best UFC rivalries, which highlights the best UFC rivalries. You have popular fights right here that you can check out. Classic fights. So again, they do have some classic fights. They just don't have every single classic event in its entirety. So if you wanted to randomly watch, I don't know, UFC 55, right? Now, that being said, you might be asking yourself, if I'm a UFC fan, why wouldn't I sign up for ESPN Plus? And that is a good question. Why you might not sign up is because of the fact that there's so much UFC content already out there. What does that mean? There are select fights that are on ESPN itself. There are some fights that you can watch even on basic cable, rarely, but every now and then on ABC and FX and the other Disney family of networks. And on top of that, there's plenty of replays throughout the ESPN family of networks when it comes to UFC Unleashed, UFC Reloaded. Like, all this programming right here usually plays on ESPN's series of networks. On top of that, when it comes to just singular fights, just if you want to watch one or two fights, a lot of them are already uploaded on YouTube from UFC's own YouTube channel. So there's that. And then if you want to get really granular with it, if you are somebody that downloaded the Pluto TV app, which is free, along with the Zumo app, which is free, they do have a 24/7 UFC channel. Now, granted, it's not always showing the most current stuff, but if you want to watch classic UFC content, you can watch it right there. So if you're not a UFC fan, though, what else do you get with ESPN Plus? You get a number of college sports. If you really like college baseball, if you really like women's lacrosse, if you like other college sports, you do get a decent amount here. If you like golf, if you like hockey to an extent, you get some content here beyond the current Warner Brothers Discovery deal that NHL has in place. Not great if you're somebody that's into the three major sports and sports leagues, which again are MLB, NBA, and of course the king of them all in the US, the NFL. But if you're a UFC fan, MMA fan, who also happens to like a few other sports, this is a pretty good deal. You could also bundle it with the Disney and Hulu triple play package. But yeah, looking on the surface here, I mean, if you like Formula One, there's some Formula One stuff for sure, which is great. But you are starting to possibly lose some content as we get closer and closer to the end of the year. Why? Because again, MLB's future with ESPN is murky. UFC, even in the next year, who knows if they stay on ESPN or if they negotiate to go to another streaming platform like, say, Netflix or Prime Video. And then Top Rank Boxing, as of right now, is not staying with ESPN. So where does that leave you? That leaves you with some college sports, some niche sports, Formula One, which again, a lot of people like, some awesome documentaries, some pretty decent original programming, some various event replays, some various show replays for ESPN that you can get on demand on ESPN Plus, like Pardon the Interruption. For the most part, a lot of UFC content. But here's the thing too, and this is going to get more specific to my fellow MMA fans. A lot of the UFC events these days, unfortunately, are currently UFC Apex shows, which if you don't know what that is, UFC is essentially running in a warehouse, in a gym with a smaller octagon, with a small crowd. Think of those old fights you used to watch on the original Ultimate Fighter where you just heard like a few people cheering and booing. That's kind of what it is. And they're doing it to evidently save some money and, hey, we're producing fights, who cares? Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like UFC is trying to produce even more events in the Apex, which is not great. Not great at all. It reminds me of those pandemic era shows. It's essentially the pandemic era arena that they used, and they're still using it, even though now live sports are pretty much back to normal. I don't get it for financial reasons. Yeah, okay, but not great for the viewer. So that's another thing that could turn people off as well, which, hey, I don't blame you if you don't want to watch those Apex events. Now, in terms of functionality, the app does work, but it is a little annoying here. Why is it annoying? Because you could watch live, as you can see right here. I click this, I could click watch live, but where's my watch list, right? Let me go right here to more ESPN Plus exclusives. Okay, let's just say I would like to watch a certain show. So if I want to watch a certain show, maybe I want to watch, I don't know, a film spotlight. Let me go to Celtics Lakers here. Why is there no watch list? Why is there no favorites? Why is there no ability for me to click like, rate what I like, and that way be suggested what I like, kind of like what Netflix does, and almost every major streaming platform. On top of that, and again, I haven't had too many issues with ESPN Plus, but I know a lot of people and a lot of fellow sports personalities who have, particularly when streaming pay-per-view. And these are people I know with really good internet. Now, I have pretty good internet, and I haven't had too many issues for the most part, but at times it can be a little laggy, and I've heard that results may vary. So if I had to recommend you subscribing, or if you're thinking about subscribing, I would recommend maybe trying it for a month and then going from there, seeing what you like, seeing how the quality is. And if you dig it, then maybe you want to sign up for the year because it's a little bit cheaper for the year. But overall, I gotta say this. If you're an MMA fan, yeah, I think it's worth signing up for ESPN Plus. You do get a ton of content, even if you don't get UFC's complete archive. It is still a nice deal. You do still get a lot of exclusive fights and post shows and all that jazz. If you're a fan of college sports, I think the results will vary. And then as far as hockey goes, I'll defer to my hockey homies. I can only speak to what I like and what my friends like. And yeah, it seems like a lot of people right now are really mainly watching for the UFC side of things. And if we're being honest, UFC's currently carrying this platform. So if you're not an MMA fan, honestly, you might want to look elsewhere. If you're an NFL fan, keep in mind you could stream games on Netflix now. You can stream games on Prime Video with Thursday Night Football. Of course, ESPN has Monday Night Football. You still get some games with basic cable. And you get NFL Red Zone with YouTube TV or Sunday Ticket. Or you can even do NFL Game Pass, I believe it's called, the separate app that they have that you can watch online. With NBA, it's, of course, spread out across ESPN, ABC, TNT, TBS. You know what I mean? Like, it's spread out. There's not one specific place you can find the NBA. And with MLB, there is, of course, their own app if you do want to watch all the games there. So, yeah. I would give ESPN Plus, as far as for overall sports, a thumbs down. If you're an MMA fan, particularly a UFC fan, I'd give it a thumbs up because it does throw in some PFL in there as well. And I think there is enough content to keep you busy. But man, if they're going to continue with this app, I really do think they got to acquire more rights to more specific events. And they got to throw you a bone too. I mean, some of these pay-per-views are super expensive. And hey, if you're covering it and it's your job, that's one thing. But if you're just a fan, like, man, it is a big barrier of entry. Like, hey, sign up and then also pay $80 for a pay-per-view. But I want to hear from you. What do you think about ESPN Plus? Let me know. Leave a comment below if you enjoyed this review. Like, share. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more updates like this. And until next time, everybody, as always, enjoy the games.